If you are watching this late at night, keep your volume low and your lights on. Because what I am about to tell you is not a campfire story. It is not a rumor. It is not something I heard from a friend of a friend. This happened to me. I am a forest ranger, and I work the midnight shift in a district most people never visit. A stretch of road where the trees grow too close, the fog moves like it has intent, and the radio signal dies the moment you need it most. There are places in the woods where silence feels normal. And then there are places where silence feels arranged. On the night this started, dispatch sent me to check an automated beacon ping from an abandoned fire watchtower. A tower that should have been dead. A tower that should not have been calling anyone at all. But it called. And the worst part is this: it did not just call me through the radio. It made my body want to answer. So before you go any further, listen closely. If you ever find yourself deep in a forest after midnight, and something in the dark speaks with a voice you recognize, do not follow it. Do not respond. And whatever you do, do not go up. Midnight in the West District is not a time. It is a pressure system. It moves in without clouds and drops onto the forest like a heavy palm. It changes how sound behaves. It changes how distance behaves. It changes how the human brain behaves when it realizes the dark is not empty, it is crowded. I have worked these roads long enough to know when the shift happens. It is subtle at first. A wind that stops too abruptly. An owl that calls once and then decides it regrets it. The last warmth falling out of the air like a coin slipping from a pocket. The trees remain trees, but the idea of them changes. During the day, the pines look like landmarks. At night, they look like witnesses. My name is Jonah Pike. Forest Service Ranger, West District, night rotation. The district visitors never see on postcards. The one tucked behind the scenic overlooks and the trail maps with clean lines. Out here the road is not a promise. It is a suggestion. The radio signal thins to a weak pulse. The GPS tries to paint certainty on an area that refuses it. And the forest, after midnight, acts like it has been waiting for someone to remember it exists. The dispatch radio sits on the passenger seat because the console mount is useless on washboard roads. It rattles like bones in a can. My thermos is empty. My gloves smell like wet leather and pine sap. The truck's heater works only in moods. My flashlight is clipped to my vest and the beam has become an extension of my breathing. My sidearm rests where it always does, and I have never been entirely sure whether it is for animals or for the kind of fear that grows legs. A routine night is still work. You patrol gates. You check for illegal fires. You drive the spurs where people like to park and drink and pretend wilderness is a theme park. You watch the tree line for headlights that should not be there. You listen for calls from lost hikers who swear the trail moved. Tonight the call arrives early, and it does not sound routine. Static first, a wet crackle that makes me think of a mouth trying to form words through water. Then dispatch, voice strained as if they are reading something they do not want to read. Automated beacon ping from the old watch line. Tower 19. No storm activity. No scheduled maintenance. Signal is steady. Tower 19. The number lands in my chest like a cold coin. That tower should not be pinging anyone. It is an old steel skeleton left behind when budgets changed. They call it decommissioned, but they never cut its throat. It still stands on a ridge above dead logging cuts, watching nothing and waiting like a bad memory. I answer dispatch and keep my tone flat, professional, calm. Nearest unit is me. I am going in. Dispatch asks if I want another unit. I say no without thinking. Pride. Habit. Or maybe a part of me already understands that bringing more people into the West District after midnight is not help. It is feeding. The road climbs immediately. Pines crowd close. Headlights carve a narrow tunnel and the darkness beyond feels thicker than it should. The air leaks through the window seal, cold and wet. It smells like damp bark and metal, like rainwater held too long in a steel bucket. The clock on my dash reads 12:12 a.m. Some rangers believe in small superstitions. Nothing you admit in training, nothing you put in reports. Things you pick up from the old-timers who have survived long enough to talk quietly. One of those superstitions says do not watch the clock too much on a night shift. If you keep checking time, you start syncing your attention to something else that is also paying attention to time. I tell myself that is nonsense. Still, my eyes flick away from the clock like it might bite. A mile later the road bends, and my headlights land on a deer standing in the center of the spur. Not a buck. Not a doe. Too still. Its posture is wrong, stiff like a statue that forgot to become stone. It does not flinch at the truck. It does not blink at the light. It stands square and watches me with dull eyes that do not reflect. I stop. The engine idles. My breath fogs the windshield. I wait for it to move. The deer turns its head slowly. Too slowly, like the forest is rotating it by hand. And I see its mouth. The jawline looks stretched downward as if a hinge has been pulled. A clean dark seam runs from the corner of its mouth back into fur. Not blood. Not shadow. A line like something cut it and sealed the cut from the inside. The deer steps off the road into the trees without making a sound. No crunch of needles. No snap of twig. It disappears like a thought that has been deleted. The silence that follows feels staged. Like the forest is watching to see what I do next. I drive on. Past the faded restricted access sign with lettering so worn it is more memory than warning. Past the dead stand of trees that look like charred matchsticks. Past the fork where the GPS becomes a liar and the map turns into a pale grid and my triangle icon drifts like a lost boat. I turn the GPS off. Out here the forest does not like being labeled. At a bend where runoff collects, I see footprints in the mud. Bare feet. Too long. Toes splayed wide like hands pressed into soil. Heel marks deep, almost triangular. The prints are fresh enough that water still glistens inside them. This is not a tourist. This is not a hunter. Not this far, not this cold, not barefoot. I pull over and step out. The cold hits my chest like a shove. My breath comes out pale and fast. The forest smells like wet stone and iron. My boots sink slightly in the soft shoulder. I crouch near the tracks and sweep my flashlight low. The beam catches texture and depth. These prints are heavy. Whatever made them press down hard enough to squeeze water up from below. The mud shines like it has been freshly stirred. The prints lead off the road into the trees. I stand and stare into the black between trunks. The darkness feels occupied. Not by a bear. Not by a person. By something that does not need a flashlight to see me. I key the radio. Possible trespasser. Fresh tracks off-road. Proceeding with caution. Dispatch answers. Voice tighter now. Sheriff is 20 to 30 minutes out if you request. I request, and the word comes out sharper than I intend. Send them. Also notify wildlife. Possible poaching. Because I have seen the deer. Because something about the air suggests meat. I climb back into the truck and drive on. The road narrows. The trees lean in. Lichen hangs from branches like gray hair. My headlights sweep across something hanging from a limb and my brain tries to call it fabric at first, because the brain wants simple explanations. Then the light hits it fully. Animal hide. Peeled and draped like a wet coat. Edges cut clean. Fur scraped away. Pale underside gleaming as if it is still warm. It swings slightly though there is no wind. I brake too hard and the truck rocks. My hands tighten on the wheel until my knuckles hurt. The road continues and there are more. Spaced like markers. A path built out of butchered things. A dark bead falls onto my windshield and crawls downward, splitting into thin lines. I do not look up at what it fell from. My eyes refuse. The tower appears above the canopy as a thin skeletal finger. Its frame catches my headlights and flashes pale, then vanishes as the road curves. The beacon should be visible from here, a red pulse. I see nothing. The access road ends in a clearing. The tower stands at the far edge, steel legs planted in rock and dirt. The gate at the base of the stairs is chained, but the chain hangs loose, cut clean through. Someone did not break it. Someone opened it by force. I park and leave the engine running. The clearing is too still. Even the insects seem absent. The forest holds its breath as if it wants to hear my heartbeat. My flashlight beam finds scuffed dirt, broken pine cones, then a handprint in dust on a flat rock. Long fingers, pressed hard enough to smear dirt outward. Another handprint beside it. Another. They lead toward the stairs like someone crawled here on hands, not feet, dragging a body that did not like walking upright. I aim the beam up the tower legs. The metal is damp with condensation. Rust streaks run down like dried blood. At the first landing, something is wired to the railing. An old ranger badge. Not mine. Older style. Dull metal, scratched. The name plate peeled off. The wire holding it is twisted tight, careful, almost decorative, like a gift meant to be noticed. My stomach sinks because I know exactly what this is. Silas Rourke. 3 years ago. Tower 19. Automated beacon ping. Silas drove up alone to check it. His truck was found later. His flashlight. His radio. No blood. No trail. No body. Just a file with the kind of clean, empty ending that makes people say missing and then stop talking. Now his badge is wired to the tower like an invitation. Something creaks above me. Metal, soft and slow. A sound that could be wind, except there is no wind. Then another creak. Closer. A change in weight. Then breathing. Long wet pulls, patient, like something resting just out of sight on the higher platforms. I back away until my shoulders hit the truck door. My breath fogs in quick bursts. I key the radio with shaking fingers. I am at the tower. Gate breached. Found evidence tied to the missing ranger case. Hearing movement above. Dispatch replies instantly. Stay in your vehicle. Sheriff is en route. Do not go up there. I obey for half a minute. I climb into the cab and shut the door. The cab feels too small now, like a box built to deliver me. I put the truck into reverse. The tires spin in loose gravel, then catch. The truck does not move. Not stuck. Held. The suspension dips, groaning, as if something massive presses down on the tailgate. I stare into the rearview mirror and see only darkness. But I feel weight. Not just physical. Intentional. I slam into drive and hit the gas forward. The weight lifts and the truck lurches. Gravel sprays. Something hits the back window. A dull thump. Then a slow drag, like fingers sliding down glass. I do not look back. I drive out of the clearing and onto the spur road, heart hammering, telling myself this is still a situation with explanations. There. Trespasser. A prank. Anything. The engine sputters. The dash lights flicker. The radio erupts into static so loud it hurts. It is not normal static. It has texture. It sounds wet. Then the truck dies. Headlights off. Engine silent. The world vanishes. I sit in complete darkness, hands locked on the wheel. My breathing sounds too loud. Outside, something moves through brush. Slow. Confident. Not hurrying because it does not need to hurry. I click my flashlight on and aim it through the windshield. In the beam, on the road ahead, stands a person. Too tall. Shoulders narrow. Arms too long. Head slightly bowed as if tired. I key the radio out of habit. Dispatch, my vehicle is down. There is someone in the road. No answer. Only static. The figure turns its head toward me. It does not have a face. Smooth pale skin stretched over skull shape. Where the mouth should be, a vertical slit lies closed like an eye. The slit opens slightly. Not wide. Just enough to show darkness inside. Something in that darkness forms my name without sound. Jonah. My blood goes cold. I draw my pistol. The sight steadies because the body chooses routine when the mind cannot choose meaning. Breathe. Focus. The figure does not flinch. It takes a step forward. The gravel does not crunch under its foot. The road does not acknowledge its weight. I fire. The muzzle flash lights the trees for an instant. The shot hits center mass. The figure folds backward like it has been pushed, then straightens again without blood, without tear, without reaction beyond a lazy twitch. It steps closer, gliding. I fire again. And again. Each shot feels smaller than the silence. The figure stops just outside the brightest circle of my flashlight beam. It lifts one hand. Fingers bend with too many joints. It points toward the hood. A tapping begins from inside the engine block. Not on the metal. Within it. Up, up, up. The dashboard lights answer with weak flickers, like whatever's tapping is learning the shape of my vehicle, learning how to silence it, learning how to make it dead. I grab my pack and throw the door open and roll out, coming up on one knee in the dirt. The cold bites my palms even through gloves. The faceless thing watches and does not chase. It does not need to chase. I sprint into the trees. Branches whip my face. Needles snag my jacket. Darkness swallows the road behind me. Then I hear footsteps. Not the gliding ones. Real ones. Many. All around. The forest is not a place now. It is a net. I stop and listen. The tower creaks in the distance like a throat clearing. Closer, something breathes in short, excited pulls, like a dog catching scent. My flashlight beam catches a strip of cloth hanging at eye level. Dark green. Ranger uniform fabric. Warm, not cold, as if it has been against skin minutes ago. A patch still stitched on. Old design. I know the name without reading because the night has already carved it into my mind. Silas Rourke. A shape clings to the underside of a branch above me like a spider. Human-sized, maybe larger. Limbs bent wrong. Elbows reversed. Knees angled outward. Long wet hair swinging like moss. It has a face. But it is not a face made for being seen. The mouth is too wide, split toward cheeks. Teeth crowded like broken glass. The eyes are milky, rolled upward, but still open. It does not blink. It smiles anyway. Then it drops. I throw myself sideways into ferns. It hits the ground where I was, landing on hands and feet with a wet slap. It turns too fast, head snapping toward me. Its lips move like it is practicing. Come up. The words are not spoken. They are transmitted. Through my skull. Through the wet static of the air. More shadows shift between trees. Not one. Not two. A ring forming. Patient. Quiet. Herding. I run downhill because instinct chooses the fastest slope. Roots grab at my boots. Fallen branches whip my shins. My ankle throbs from the earlier jump out of the truck, pain blooming hot in the cold. The river cut is the only landmark my mind can hold. Water is boundary. Water is honest. Water does not whisper. The river noise grows until it becomes a wall. Mist rises from it like breath. The footbridge appears ahead. Old planks. Rope handrail sagging. The kind of crossing built back when logging roads mattered. A person stands near the bank. A ranger coat, soaked, hood up. For 1 second my mind grabs relief and tries to make him human. Deputy. Sheriff. Help. Then my flashlight catches the badge on his chest. Old style. The coat is torn. The fabric soaked through. His hands are bare, skin pale as wax. He lifts his head. The face looks like a photo left too long in water. Features softened, edges wrong, eyes looking down through me rather than at me. His mouth opens. No sound. But the radio on my belt answers, even though I threw my radio into the river. The sound comes from the speaker anyway, like the night has grown its own equipment inside my gear. Come up. Pressure tightens behind my eyes. Images flash in my mind. Tower stairs. Metal landings. A cabin at the top glowing dim red like a heartbeat. The bridge creaks on its own as if inviting. The soaked ranger points uphill even though the tower is not visible from here. Shapes gather behind him in the trees. Silhouettes wrong in different ways. They have built a choice. Tower or river. Up or down. I do the one thing that feels like mine. I jump into the river. Cold hits me like a fist. Water steals my breath. Current grabs my body and yanks me downstream. Rocks scrape my legs. My pack drags like a hand on my back. I surface coughing, eyes burning, and I see the bank sliding past. The soaked ranger stands at the edge, keeping pace without moving. His mouth opens. This time I hear it through the water itself, through bone conduction, through the cold. Come up. Then the current pulls me under again and the world becomes dark, roaring, and endless. Cold water turns thoughts into fragments. I come up hard, choking, and the river slaps my face like it is angry I am still alive. My lungs seize. My hands claw at nothing. The current owns me completely, rolling my body as if I am just another branch washed loose from the bank. I fight anyway because fighting is the only thing that feels like mine. A rock catches my shin. Pain flashes white. I kick, twist, and manage to snag a half-submerged log with my elbow. The bark is slick and algae-coated. My arm slides. I hook my fingers into a rotten notch and hold on like a drowning animal. The river drags at my pack, trying to peel it off. My boots fill with water and feel like anchors. I pull my chest onto the log, then my stomach, then my knees, and finally I roll off onto the stones at the edge, where the water can still reach me but cannot take me outright. I lie there shaking, face pressed to wet rock, hearing the river roar and breathe. When I lift my head, fog drifts low over the water, turning the surface into a moving mouth. The bank across from me is only a darker blur. Pines rise above it like a wall. The moon is somewhere behind clouds or behind something else. There is barely any light at all, but the darkness has texture, like fabric stretched tight. My first instinct is to check my sidearm. My holster is empty. I do not remember losing the pistol. That is what scares me most. If I cannot track my own actions, then the night is already inside my memory, rearranging things. I sit up and force my hands to move with purpose. Pack straps, buckles, knife, flashlight, spare batteries, first aid pouch, one road flare sealed in plastic, a small signal strobe, a tin of energy chews that tastes like chalk. Everything is there except the weight of that gun. My radio is still clipped to my vest, and it makes no sense because I ripped it off earlier in the truck. I remember the motion. I remember the cold metal biting my palm. I remember the strap snapping back. And yet it is here. Wet. Not dead. I key it once without thinking, and the speaker answers with the same wet static that seems to come from lungs rather than wires. Beneath it, something is whispering, not loud, not urgent, just patient and intimate. Come up. The phrase is not spoken like a warning or a command. It is spoken like a reminder, like a duty call, like the way dispatch says your name when there is work to do and no room for excuses. I stare at the radio for a second, then I do the only sane thing my body can offer. I rip it off and throw it as far as I can into the river. It hits the water and vanishes under foam. For a breath the world feels quieter. Then the quiet reveals how alone I am. The radio was poisoned, but it was still a tether to the idea that someone could hear me. Without it, the forest closes in like a door shutting. I stand, legs unsteady, and my ankle sends a hot pulse of pain up my shin. The injury is not dramatic, but it is enough. The kind that changes how you move. The kind that turns running into bargaining. I limp along the bank, using trees when I need to. Every step squishes. Every step sends cold water up through my boot seams. My teeth chatter so hard my jaw aches. The river bends toward the old culvert, the one that runs under the logging road. If I can reach it, I can cut under the ridge and get to the maintenance shed. There is a base radio there, tools, fuel, maybe a working vehicle. A place with edges and corners that feels less like being swallowed. I keep moving. The fog thickens, and the air smells like wet stone and metal again. The same smell from the road, the same smell near the tower. It is like the tower breathes iron into everything connected to it. My flashlight beam catches sandbar ahead. Footprints. Bare feet. Too long. Toes splayed. Fresh. They do not come from the treeline. They do not come from upstream. They begin at the waterline, as if something stepped out of the river ahead of me, walked across the sand, then vanished again into brush without leaving any other trace. I stop so abruptly my ankle flares. The river noise keeps going. Indifferent. The fog moves slowly, as if it is thinking. The trees do not move at all. I take one step toward the prints and the beam catches the depth of them. They are heavy prints. Not a small animal. Not a person. The heel digs deep, triangular, and water glistens at the edges. The worst part is the spacing. The stride is wrong, too long. Like whoever made them is pretending to walk like a person but does not fully understand the distance between steps. I force myself to keep going because standing here is the fastest way to lose my nerve. My brain wants to assign a shape to the thing that made those tracks, and once it does, the fear becomes real in a way it can no longer avoid. So I limp past, refusing to give the prints the respect of my attention. The culvert appears through the brush like the mouth of a tunnel that has been waiting. Concrete stained black by years of runoff. The interior darker than the night outside, a darkness that feels thick, like it has weight. Water trickles along the bottom. The sound echoes. I swing my flashlight into the opening. Scratch marks. Deep grooves carved into the concrete walls, long and uneven, like something dragged claws through again and again. Pale fungal streaks run along the sides in shapes that look too much like fingerprints smeared in chalk. The fungus glows faintly when the light hits it, a sickly pale shine that makes my skin crawl. On the ground just inside lie metal shapes. Old ranger badges. Some bent. Some snapped. Some missing name plates. Uniform scraps too, dark green cloth stiff with old damp. It looks like offerings. Like someone has been feeding this tunnel pieces of people for a long time. I crouch and pick up one badge with numb fingers. The metal is cold enough to sting. No name. But I recognize the style. Old. The kind that was phased out before I joined. I set it down and step into the culvert. The air inside is warmer than it should be. Not comfortable warm. Body warm. Like breath trapped in a throat. My flashlight beam wobbles as my hands shake. I move faster, keeping low, listening hard. A drip echoes deeper. Then another. Slow. Patient. Something shifts in the darkness ahead, and for a split second my light catches the shape of a hand pressed to the wall, fingers spread, then it slides away into shadow too smoothly to be human. My heart slams once, hard, like it is trying to escape my ribs. I do not go deeper to investigate. I crawl through quickly, knees scraping concrete, boots slipping in wet grit. Halfway through, a sound scratches behind me. Not on concrete. On metal. A sound like nails dragged along steel. It comes from the far end of the culvert, the end I am crawling toward. Which means something is already there. My body freezes. My breath locks. For a moment I cannot move because every option feels like a wrong door. Then the scratching stops. Silence pours in like water. In that silence, a low humming begins, so faint I am not sure it is real at first. A lullaby made of wires. The sound is coming from above, from the ridge, from the direction of the tower. The tower is singing. I force my limbs to work again and crawl faster, scraping my knees raw, lungs burning, the humming building in my skull as if it is vibrating through bone. I spill out of the culvert into wet brush on the other side and gulp cold air like it is medicine. My hands tremble. My ankle throbs. My clothes cling heavy and cold. Upslope, half hidden by pines, sits the maintenance shed. A squat dark shape. The door is open. Swinging slightly. No wind. That detail hits me like a warning. Doors do not swing without wind. Not out here. Not tonight. I limp up anyway because I need shelter, tools, something human-made. The shed is the closest thing to an anchor I have left. Inside, dust floats in my flashlight beam. Tools hang on pegs. A workbench sits against the wall. An old base radio rests on a shelf, its indicator light glowing faint green. It should not have power. The speaker crackles. Come up. Then again. Come up. The voice is warped, as if it is being spoken through a wet cloth. But it has cadence. It has familiarity. It knows how human words should land. I step in and yank the power cable from the wall. The green light stays on. The voice continues. I hit the radio with my fist. It skips, stutters, then resumes like nothing happened. My head aches suddenly, sharp pressure behind my eyes, like a hand squeezing my skull. The shed tilts. For a split second the wall in front of me is not plywood anymore. It is the inside of the tower cabin. Dim red light. A desk. Photographs on the wall. Every face scratched out. Then it snaps back to the shed. I grip the workbench to steady myself. My fingers leave wet prints on dusty wood. On the bench lies a logbook. The cover swollen from damp. I open it and expect ink. There is no ink. There are dents pressed into the paper, words carved without color, as if someone wrote by pressing hard enough to bruise the pages. I tilt the flashlight and let shadows fill the indentations. Stares. Hunger. Watching. Rest at the top. I flip forward. The impressions get deeper, more frantic, as if the writer was driving their pen through the paper to make sure the message stayed even if ink faded. I cannot stop. I cannot stop. I said yes. I said yes. A wave of nausea hits me. I slam the book shut like it is hot. Outside, a branch cracks. A boot step on gravel. Relief spikes through me before my brain can question it. Sheriff. Deputy. Human. I rush to the doorway and shine my light out. A deputy stands in the clearing, back toward me, shoulders squared, motionless. His uniform looks right. His posture looks right. But the stillness is wrong. Too clean. Like a mannequin placed carefully. I call out his attention, my voice louder than I mean it to be, the way you speak when you want reality to hold. The deputy does not turn. His shoulder radio plays a recording of my own voice, my earlier warning, stitched into a loop. Do not approach the tower. Do not approach the tower. My stomach drops. The deputy turns his head slowly. His face is smooth. Pale skin stretched over skull shape. Vertical slit where the mouth should be. The slit opens, and cold spills into the shed like smoke. Come up. I back into the shed and slam the door even though I know wood will not hold. The door latch clicks with a pathetic finality that feels like a joke. The base radio grows louder, as if excited. The logbook dents seem to deepen by themselves, as if invisible pressure is rewriting. The deputy thing knocks once. Polite. Then again. Each knock makes the shed walls flex slightly inward. The air pressure changes. My ears pop. My stomach rolls. I grab the flare from my pack with shaking hands. The plastic wrapper crinkles too loud. I fumble, fingers numb, and finally get it free. The knocks stop. Silence. Then breathing begins against the door. Long wet pulls. The same breathing from the tower stairs. The same patient intimacy. A whisper slides through the wood, right into my skull, like the wood is only a suggestion. You already answered. The shed tilts again. My vision flickers, and for a heartbeat I am standing in the tower cabin, red light washing the walls, photographs staring with scratched faces. Then I am back in the shed. I do not wait. I kick the back window out. Glass bites my gloves. I crawl through the frame, tearing my jacket, and drop into wet brush behind the building. My ankle screams. I swallow the sound. Behind me, the shed door opens with a slow creak. I do not look back. I run anyway, limping, falling, catching myself on saplings, moving again. The forest seems to guide my path, snapping twigs behind me when I try to stop, thickening brush when I try to turn away. It is not chasing me like an animal. It is moving me like a piece across a board. And above it all, in the distance, something pulses faintly red through fog, steady as a heartbeat. The tower. even though I am no longer sure it exists in the way structures are supposed to exist. My lungs burn. My hands shake. My thoughts feel loud inside my skull. I stumble into a switchback trail, one that climbs toward the ridge, and the reflective markers on the trees flash red even when my flashlight is pointed elsewhere. One after another. A runway. Leading up. Come up. The words are not in the air now. They are in my muscles. In my bones. In the part of my mind that responds to duty without asking why. I stop, brace myself against a tree, and force my breathing slow. If I let panic run me, the forest wins. If I let fear decide my steps, the tower gets what it wants. I close my eyes and try to remember something normal. A ranger station coffee pot. The smell of paper forms. A day shift briefing. A kid asking if there are bears. I open my eyes. The red markers still pulse. My ankle throbs like a warning drum. And somewhere behind me, moving through brush with wet patience, something that learned the shape of a deputy is coming closer without haste. I take the flare in both hands and hold it like a prayer I do not believe in yet. Then I limp uphill, because every other direction feels like walking into glue. And because part of me is starting to understand the worst truth. The tower does not just call you. It makes you want to answer. The trail wants me. That is the first thought that lands with absolute certainty as I limp up the switchback. Not the tower. Not the creatures. Not the faceless deputy thing drifting somewhere behind me like a patient infection. The trail itself. The path cut through the trees. The line of worn dirt and crushed needles. It feels like a tongue guiding food toward a throat. The reflective markers on the trees keep pulsing that faint ember red, one after another, up the climb. They do it even when my flashlight is angled at the ground. They do it even when I blink hard, trying to convince myself my eyes are glitching from cold and panic. They pulse as if they are breathing. I force my focus on my own body, because body facts are harder to argue with than fear facts. My ankle is swollen. It grinds when I step wrong. The wet weight of my clothes pulls at my shoulders. My fingers are numb at the tips, pain prickling underneath. My breath is loud in my ears. I taste copper like I bit my tongue, but I do not remember biting it. I hold the flare in both hands as if it can keep me human. It is still unlit. The plastic wrapper is gone. The striker cap feels too small for my clumsy cold fingers. I keep thinking about heat. About how the faceless thing did not like nothing, but also did not like bullets. About how the deputy thing knocked politely, like it believed manners mattered. About how the tower voice is always the same phrase, always the same invitation, and I cannot tell if the tower is hungry or lonely or both. The West District is full of things you cannot prove. Old-timer stories. Missing person cases that never get closure. Trail cameras that catch shapes that look like people but have too many joints. Visitors who swear their tents were moved in the night. Hikers who claim the stars shifted. Most of the time you file those stories under the category of tired brains and wild places. Right now, none of those categories are big enough. A twig snaps behind me. Not near. Not far. The exact middle distance that makes it impossible to locate by sound. I stop and listen. The forest holds its breath again, like it is waiting for my reaction. Then, from somewhere off trail, a wet inhale, slow and satisfied, like someone smelling food. My stomach drops. I keep moving. The switchback climbs a slope that should be familiar. I have patrolled these ridges in different seasons. I know where the old logging cuts open into clearings. I know where the ground turns from pine needle to gravel. I know where the old stone ring sits, the one hikers sometimes stumble into and mistake for a fire pit. But tonight the terrain feels rearranged. Slopes are steeper than memory. Trees feel closer. The air feels thicker whenever I try to deviate. It is as if the forest has decided that my map of the world is an inconvenience. The red markers lead me toward a clearing. Moonlight slips through fog in thin strips. The fog itself seems to glow faintly from within, like it is lit by something below ground. I step out of the trees and the clearing opens up like a stage. A circle of stones sits at its center, low rocks arranged carefully, too deliberate to be random. Inside the circle lies a pile of bones. Not scattered, stacked, arranged into the unmistakable shape of stairs. It hits my brain with the kind of blunt shock that makes the world go quiet for a second. My ears ring. My mouth goes dry. On top of the bone stairs, catching my flashlight beam, rests a rusted key on a chain. A tower key. My arm lifts toward it without permission. I feel it as a tug behind my eyes, a pressure in the soft place where thoughts form. The same pressure I felt at the river when the soaked ranger shape pointed uphill. The same pressure that comes with the phrase, like the phrase is not words but an instruction embedded in nerves. My fingers hover above the key. Then a different voice speaks inside my skull. Not the wet whisper. Not the tower cadence. A strained human signal, thin and cracked like a radio dying at the edge of range. Do not climb. The voice is not loud. It is exhausted. It carries the weight of someone who has been trying to say this for a long time and keeps getting cut off. I jerk my hand back as if the key burned me. The voice continues, each word costly, like it has to push through layers of static. It wears your duty like bait. It keeps watchers. It keeps voices. Heat breaks it. Water slows it. Do not climb. My heart hammers so hard it feels like it is bruising my ribs from the inside. I do not know if the voice is real. I do not know if it is Silas Rourke, the missing ranger shaped into warning, or if it is something else trapped in the structure, something that learned how to speak human just enough to beg. But it is different from the tower. It does not feel hungry. It feels afraid. I turn slowly, flashlight sweeping the tree line. Shadows stand between trunks. Not one. Not two. A scattered ring, too far back to be a person group, too still to be animals. Their silhouettes are wrong in small ways. One too tall. One too bent. One with arms that hang too low. One with a head shaped like a soft bulb. Another with shoulders hunched forward like it is carrying something heavy inside its chest. They do not advance. They watch. The red trail markers behind me pulse again, brighter for a moment, as if impatient. Come up. The phrase is in the air now, not spoken, but suggested. A vibration in the fog. A pattern in my breathing. A rhythm in the beating of my heart. I glance down at the bone stairs and realize the bones are not all animal. Some are too long, too straight. Some are shaped like forearms. Some like ribs. My throat tightens until swallowing hurts. The pressure behind my eyes intensifies. My mind fills with images that do not belong to my memory. Metal steps. Condensation. A cabin door. A desk under dim red light. Photographs scratched until faces are gone. A radio whispering names. I squeeze my eyes shut and force my hands to move. Flare. My fingers fumble the striker cap. Cold turns my hands clumsy. Panic makes them worse. I force myself to breathe in slow counts, because breath is the only thing I can still control. I strike. For a split second nothing happens, and the fear spikes sharp and hot, like a needle. Then the flare catches with a violent hiss. Red light erupts. Heat blooms outward. Smoke curls up into fog and stains it crimson. The shadows at the tree lean recoil. Not from brightness. From warmth. Their edges ripple like wax held too close to flame. One shape jerks back behind a trunk as if it hurt. The pressure behind my eyes loosens slightly, like fingers relaxing. I can think a little more clearly. The air feels less syrup thick. My lungs expand easier. Heat matters. The human voice in my skull returns, fainter now, like it used the flare ignition as a crack in the wall. Good. Keep it close. Do not let it pull you. I swallow hard and limp forward, away from the stone circle, using the flare like a torch. The red trail markers dim, as if insulted. I follow the ridgeline because it is the only route that does not feel like trying to walk through glue. The forest around me is a corridor of trunks and fog. The flare paints tree bark in red streaks and makes the shadows behind them look thicker, like there is a second layer of darkness pressed against the first. My ankle screams when I step wrong, but I keep moving because stopping means being surrounded. Stopping means the warmth shrinks while the night stays endless. Every so often I hear a soft wet inhale behind me. I never hear footsteps. That is worse. The ridge opens and the tower clearing appears again. But it is wrong. Not just wrong like scary. Wrong like time has been edited. The hanging hides I saw on the drive up are gone. The ground looks swept clean, as if someone took a broom to gravel. The air smells less like rot and more like damp metal. The tower's steel looks less rusted, as if it has been polished or replaced. The structure stands too straight against the sky, like a needle. At the top, the beacon pulses red. Slow. Steady. Like a heart that does not panic because it knows it will win eventually. My truck sits where I abandoned it, but it looks older. The paint dull. Rust creeping around the wheel wells. The windshield webbed with grime. On the glass, from the inside, the handprint smear is darker and more defined, as if something pressed its palm there again and again, trying to climb out. I swing the flare toward the base of the tower. Figures stand in a loose ring around the clearing. Still. Silent. Facing inward. Not moving like predators. More like worshippers. Their bodies do not look fully solid in the flare light. They look layered. Stitched. Built from scraps. Here a ranger jacket sleeve hanging from a shoulder that does not sit right. There a civilian hoodie half fused into pale skin. A pair of jeans that ends in feet too long. A bare torso that looks like wet paper stretched over bone. Some have faces. Some are smooth. Some are blurred like someone tried to erase them. They all look toward the tower, but the flare makes some of them twitch, as if warmth scratches at their edges. In the ring, one figure stands slightly forward. Soaked coat. Old badge. Ranger shape. The same shape that stood at the riverbank. I do not want to call him Silas. Names make things real. But the badge shape on his chest burns into my mind anyway. Silas Rourke. Or the knight's best attempt at his outline. He steps toward the flare with a slow trembling motion, like a cold person drawn to fire. His head tilts. The face shifts in the red light, and I see something worse than facelessness. Layers. Like many versions of the same man stacked slightly off, misaligned, as if the tower has been trying to rebuild him night after night and never gets the angles correct. One eye seems too high. Another mouth line appears beneath the real mouth line. The skin looks waterlogged, swollen, like paper soaked too long. He lifts his hands toward the heat. A small shudder runs through the ring of figures, and I realize they are connected. Not by touch. By a shared attention. Like a choir that breathes together. The beacon pulse at the top of the tower quickens slightly, as if it noticed the flare and did not like competition. The human voice in my skull whispers again, now almost too faint to catch. Burn it. Burn the base. Do not let it keep calling. I stare at the tower legs. Wrapped around one leg are wire and bone charms. Not random. Carefully tied. Like someone long ago tried to bind the structure, tried to keep it from speaking, tried to trap whatever uses it as a mouth. The charms look old. Weathered. But the knots look fresh, like they were retied recently, or retied repeatedly. They come like a tide that learned how to hate. The ring that had been patient, ceremonial, almost worshipful, suddenly turns practical. Their stillness was never fear. It was discipline. Now that discipline points at me like a spear. The first wave hits the edge of the flare light and hesitates only long enough to measure heat. Faces blur. Mouths open. Vertical slits widen. Two wide smiles split in places no human jaw should split. The air fills with the vibration of the phrase, layered through many throats, none of them truly speaking. Come up. The tower beacon answers by pulsing faster, as if it is sinking the clearing to a heartbeat that is not mine. I swing the flare hard, a red arc cutting fog. The flare spits and hisses. Smoke rolls off it in thick curls and sticks to my jacket. The heat is real enough to sting my cheeks, but it is shrinking. The flare is burning down. The red light is still violent, but the core heat is less. I can feel the night noticing. I jam another gasoline-soaked rag onto the burning wrap at the tower leg. Fire flares higher. Heat expands outward like a shield. For a moment the wave recoils, bodies rippling at the edges, surfaces blistering where they get too close. The ones with seams show their stitches more clearly in the bright flame. The ones with smooth faces look like wax masks held near a candle. The tower groans again, long and deep. It is not the sound of steel suffering. It is the sound of something inside the steel reacting. A pressure hits my ears. My vision tunnels. The world seems to lean slightly. Fog thickens in an unnatural way, as if the tower is trying to smother the fire by breathing dampness into the clearing. My mind fills with images that are not mine. Stairs, endless, damp, climbing into red light. Hands on railings, layered handprints, hundreds deep. A cabin door that never fully shuts. A desk with a radio that does not need power. A voice whispering names into static, storing them like food. I clench my teeth and force my gaze back to what is real in front of me. Flame. Metal. Bodies. The wave surges again. One of them darts in low, faster than the others, like it has learned that speed can cross the heat gap before pain registers. Its limbs bend wrong. It moves like a spider wearing a person's suit. It lunges for my ankle. My injured ankle. I feel cold fingers brush my boot and panic explodes so hot it feels like heat. I swing the flare down and press it into the creature's shoulder. The surface bubbles, blisters, peels away in strips. Underneath is not muscle. It is layers. Cloth. Skin. Something like wet paper. The creature jerks back and collapses into the fog without sound, leaving only the smell of burnt hair and hot pennies. My ankle throbs so hard my vision flashes. I backstep and stumble, catching myself against the rusted barrel near the cache. The fuel can clanks. The sound feels too loud. The wave senses weakness and tightens. They do not rush mindlessly now. They take turns. They test. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. A rhythm, like a machine learning how to break me. I glance toward the tower leg fire. The wrapped rags burn hot, but the steel above them is sweating condensation like a living thing. The bone charms and wire bindings around the leg twitch slightly, not from wind, but from vibration. The knots look like they are straining. The human voice inside my skull returns as a thin thread, so faint it feels like memory. Do not let it keep you. If it offers you rest, it means it wants your breath. If it offers you duty, it wants your voice. The voice cracks on the last word, as if something is crushing it. Then the wet whisper answers immediately, drowning it. Come up. The pressure behind my eyes tightens again. My muscles want to obey. My spine wants to align with the tower stairs. My mouth wants to say yes. That is the most terrifying part, more than claws and teeth and faceless skin. The wanting. The tower does not drag you. It convinces your body that climbing is relief. My flare burns lower. The hiss becomes softer. I need more heat. I scan the clearing, desperate, and spot a broken branch near the fire, one end already charred. I lunge for it, ignoring ankle pain, grab it, and lift it like a spear. The branch throws sparks. Heat radiates off it. It smells like sap turned to smoke. The wave hesitates again, just for a breath, as if recalculating. Their shared rhythm stutters. I use that breath and move. Not toward the truck. Not toward the stairs. Toward the river-cut direction, the only boundary that felt honest earlier. But the forest does not want me to leave. As soon as I step away from the tower base, the brush at the clearing edge thickens in a way that makes no sense. Ferns crowd. Branches lean. The air turns syrup-heavy again, resisting movement. The tower is pulling the terrain. Or the forest is helping it. I push through anyway, branch spear in front, flare in my other hand, smoke in my eyes. The wave follows. Their footsteps still make almost no sound, but now I hear something else, a faint dragging like cloth over gravel. It is the sound of layered clothing scraping the ground because their bodies do not fit their own proportions. A figure lunges from the right, too fast, and slams into me shoulder first. We hit the ground. My flare skitters in the dirt, still burning, red glow sliding across wet gravel. My branch spear rolls away. Pain explodes from my ankle, bright and sickening. I gasp, and the breath tastes like smoke and wet iron. The figure above me has a face this time. Not smooth. Worse. A mouth split too wide, teeth crowded and uneven like broken glass. Milky eyes rolled upward but still open. Skin stretched thin and shiny, like something wrapped too tight. It leans down. Its breath smells sweet with rot, like fruit left too long in heat. Come up. The phrase vibrates through its throat without becoming sound. I slam my palm into its chest, trying to shove it back. My hand sinks slightly, not into flesh, but into softness, like wet fabric and pulp. The seams in its torso shift. Something inside it wriggles, not organs, but cords, like wires. The horror of that detail fuels me. I twist, grab the flare, and jam it up into the creature's jaw. Heat meets wet surface. The creature jerks back violently, surface blistering, mouth opening in a silent scream. Its teeth glow for a heartbeat in the flare light like cracked porcelain. It collapses sideways and vanishes into fog, leaving a smear on the gravel that looks like melted clothing. I drag myself upright, breath ragged, ankle screaming. I snatch the branch spear back and stand with a wobble that feels like a threat of collapse. The wave is closer now. They tighten like a noose. And then Silas moves. He steps out from near the burning tower leg and into the path between me and the oncoming tide. The soaked coat clings to him. Steam rises where the fire heat hits it. The layered face shifts, misalignments sliding like overlapping photographs. He lifts his hands into the flare light and the firelight. His body trembles. Not with fear, with effort. The wave hesitates. Not because they respect him. Because the heat around him is stronger, like his proximity to flame makes him more solid and less owned. For a moment the misaligned layers line up again and I see a real human expression, fleeting and terrible. A plea. He turns his head and fixes that one human eye on me again, and something inside my skull that is not the tower voice pushes through, strained and desperate. Run. Silas steps forward into the wave. The creatures surge at him, trying to pull him away from heat, trying to smother the small rebellion of warmth. Silas does not fight with claws or weapons. He fights by standing. He spreads his arms like a gate, like a barrier, like a man choosing where to die. The wave hits him, and he begins to peel. Not gore, not cinematic spray, something sadder and more wrong. His coat separates into strips. Cloth tears away from skin. Layers of uniform fragments flutter outward like dying leaves. Pale surfaces crack and slide, exposing more layers beneath, as if he is made of stacked attempts. The heat is undoing the tower's work. In the center of that peeling, I see something that makes my chest ache with a grief I do not have time to understand. A small human shape, not a full body, more like a breath held too long finally released. A pale wisp rising upward, drifting toward the open air above the clearing. For a heartbeat, the clearing feels lighter. The beacon stutters. The pulse falters. The forest rustle breaks pattern and becomes chaotic, like a crowd losing its leader. Silas's layered body collapses into scraps and steam. The wave recoils, confused, as if a signal has been interrupted. That is my opening. I limp toward the river-cut direction, half running, half dragging my leg. The branch spear swings in front of me. The flare burns low but still hot enough to matter. Smoke trails behind me like a signal. The wave regroups. They follow, but their unity is fraying. Their timing is off. They collide into each other. Some jerk toward the tower instead of toward me, as if they are being tugged by two commands at once. The tower groans. A deep metallic sound, followed by a sharper shriek. I risk a glance back. The burning tower leg is bending. Not dramatically yet, but enough. A subtle sag. A shift in the angle that makes my stomach flip. The beacon pulse accelerates wildly, then stutters again, then accelerates, like a heart in panic. The forest beyond the clearing answers with a massive synchronized rustle that rises and falls like a lung. Then it breaks. Birds explode out of the canopy in a burst, silhouettes against fog. I hear an owl call, one sharp, confused note. The sound is so normal it almost makes me cry. The tower leans. Slow. Reluctant. Heavy. Like something dying that refuses to admit it. The beacon flares once, bright and furious, painting the fog red from above. The wave of creatures freezes mid-step. Their heads tilt toward the tower. They shudder, like puppets whose strings have gone slack, then pulled again. The tower continues to lean. Steel groans. Then the entire structure collapses into the trees with a crash that shakes the ground under my boots. The impact sends a burst of fog and debris outward like a breath exhaled violently. The beacon flares one last time, a final angry pulse. Then it goes dark. For a moment, there is silence so complete it feels like my hearing has failed. Then the forest returns to itself in small, hesitant pieces. Insects clicking, tentative. Wind pushing through needles, uncertain. My own breath, ragged and human. The creatures around the clearing sag. Some collapse to their knees. Some turn their smooth faces toward me and then away, as if they cannot decide what to do without the tower telling them. Some simply stand and begin to dissolve at the edges, like fog thickening around them until they are gone. The pressure behind my eyes loosens. I can think again. I stumble down toward the river cut and fall to my knees on wet rock at the bank. The water roars, black and fast, mist rising. But it is honest noise. It does not whisper my name. Behind me, far down the service road, headlights appear through trees. Real headlights. Straight beams. Not bending. Not obeying the tower. Sheriff units. They shout, voices muffled by distance. Flashlights sweep. The beams move the way human beams move, jerky and searching, not deliberate and ritual. I try to stand and my ankle nearly gives out. Pain blooms hot. I grip a tree trunk and force myself upright. My pocket feels heavy. I reach in and my fingers close around cold metal. The old ranger badge. Warm as an ember. I do not understand how, but the warmth is real. I look back toward the ridge. Where the tower fell, I should see twisted steel. I should see wreckage. Instead, through fog and trees, the ridge line looks ordinary. Pines. Darkness. No obvious structure. As if the tower was never there, except for the smell of burnt metal lingering in the air and the ache in my ankle and the warmth of a badge that should not exist. The sheriff lights come closer. I open my mouth to call out. And in the moment before sound leaves my throat, I hear it again. Not loud. Not from the ridge. Not from any radio. From somewhere inside the forest itself, as if the trees learned the phrase and cannot forget it. Come up. I freeze. Then the sheriff light hits my face and reality snaps into place around me like a net. I swallow the scream that tries to rise. I raise one hand and wave. They find me the way you find a man after a flood. Not heroic. Not clean. Just a shape on the bank with wet clothes and shaking hands and eyes that refuse to settle. Flashlights hit my face and bounce away because the deputies do not like holding a beam on someone who looks half dead. Someone grabs my shoulders and asks if I can stand. Someone else asks if I am hurt. Someone else asks where my vehicle is. Voices overlap, but they sound far away, like I am hearing them through water even though I am on land. I try to answer. My throat is raw. The words come out in pieces. Tower collapsed. Base fire. Things in the trees. A deputy that was not a deputy. The men holding me exchange looks that do not match the sympathy on their faces. The looks say we are going to file this under shock. Hypothermia. Concussion. Stress. They wrap a blanket around me that smells like the trunk of a patrol car and old sweat. The warmth hits my skin and makes me realize how cold I actually am. My hands begin to shake harder. My teeth chatter again. My body starts trying to purge adrenaline now that it thinks the danger is over. But the danger is not over. Not really. I can feel it the way you feel a storm in your bones after it stops raining. They guide me toward a deputy vehicle parked on the service spur. The beam of their headlights cuts fog in a straight, honest line, and that almost breaks me, because straight lines belong to normal nights. I glance back toward the ridge where Tower 19 should have fallen. I expect to see twisted steel silhouettes. A gap in the canopy. Smoke drifting. I see trees. Dense pine. Fog moving slow. No structure. No wreckage. No clearing. A deputy shines his light uphill. The beam catches trunks and branches and nothing else. He frowns like he is annoyed at the terrain for not cooperating. Another deputy checks a handheld GPS and says something that makes my stomach turn. It shows a blank spot. A hole. Like the map refuses to label that portion of ridge. Like the software returns nothing because there is nothing to return. They say it as if it is an equipment glitch. But I hear it as confirmation. The tower is not just a tower. It is an event. A condition. A mouth that only exists when it is feeding. They bring me down to the station in town because there is nowhere else to bring me at this hour. The station smells like coffee and old paper and disinfectant. Fluorescent lights buzz overhead with a steady insect hum that feels almost soothing. They sit me on a bench and put a space heater near my legs. A paramedic checks my ankle and shakes his head like he has seen this 100 times. Sprain, maybe a fracture. Nothing that should keep me from walking eventually, but enough to make me limp for weeks. Enough to change how fast I can run. Someone asks me what happened. Someone asks me where the tower is. Someone asks me if I was drinking. Someone asks me if I hit my head. I answer what I can without making it sound like a ghost story. I keep my words anchored to what they can understand. Automated beacon ping. I responded. Tracks on the road. Animal remains. Cut chain. Radio interference. Vehicle failure. Pursued off-road. Fire at tower base. Collapse. Every time I try to mention faces that were not faces, or the phrase that came from mouths that did not speak, someone's expression tightens. Not disbelief exactly. More like a polite wall rising. They do not want to hear about things that make paperwork impossible. A supervisor arrives later, hair mussed, eyes heavy, smelling like he was pulled from sleep. He sits across from me and listens in the careful way administrators listen when they are already building the version of the story they can approve. He asks about Silas Rourke. The name lands wrong in the room, like a word that belongs somewhere else. He says he does not recognize it. I tell him it was in the file. The missing ranger case. Tower 19 ping 3 years ago. He asks what file. I ask if he is joking. He is not joking. He pulls records. Searches databases. Calls someone at county. He is annoyed, then confused, then quiet. There is no Silas Rourke in their system. No missing ranger. No case. No beacon ping 3 years ago. No report on Tower 19 beyond a single maintenance memo from a decade ago that says decommissioned and then nothing. That should be impossible. I am holding evidence that says otherwise. I wait until the room clears, until the supervisor steps out, until the deputies stop hovering, and then I reach into my jacket pocket and pull out the old ranger badge. The metal is warm. Not just not cold. Warm as if it has been sitting against a heat source. The nameplate is missing. The edges are scratched. But it is real. It has weight. It has a smell, faint iron and smoke. I turn it over in my palm and feel my stomach drop because the warmth makes a kind of awful sense. The tower kept voices. Maybe it also kept pieces. Maybe this is what slips through when the tower is wounded. I hide the badge again before anyone can see it. I am not ready to explain it. I do not know if explanation would keep it safe or make it disappear. They let me go home at dawn. The sky is a pale gray that looks like old paper. Fog clings to the low hills. My breath is still visible in the air. I sit in my apartment and stare at the wall while a mug of coffee cools untouched. Every time a truck passes outside, headlights sweep my window and my body flinches. Sleep does not come easily. When it does, it comes in fragments. I dream of stairs. Metal steps that never end. Hands on railings, layered handprints pressed so deep they become grooves. A door that opens a crack and breath pours out. A voice that says my name like it owns it. I wake sweating despite cold room air. The badge in my pocket is warm. Weeks pass. My ankle heals wrong. It always aches. Not agony, just a constant reminder that if I had to run again, I would not be fast. I file for reassignment. I argue. I push. The answer comes back cold and bureaucratic. Staffing shortage. West District requires night coverage. Duty rotation remains. Duty. That word again. I tell myself I can handle it now. I tell myself the tower is gone. I tell myself whatever was feeding on that ridge got burned and buried and turned into ordinary history. The badge stays warm for days, then slowly cools until it feels like normal metal. That should make me feel better. It does not. Because normal metal feels like forgetting. The first night back on duty, the district looks the same. The spurs are still washboarded. The pines still crowd close. The air still smells like sap and wet earth. The radio still crackles with routine noise and bored dispatchers and weather updates. I drive slow. I check gates. I shine my flashlight into pullouts where kids sometimes park to drink. I listen to the night for anything that feels staged. For a while, it is quiet. Too quiet. Then, near 12:10 a.m., dispatch calls with an automated ping. They do not say Tower 19. They say a different number. A tower number that does not exist in my memory, but the way dispatch says it makes it sound like it has always existed. They read it like routine. Beacon ping from Tower 36. No storm activity. No scheduled maintenance. Signal is steady. Tower 36. My hands tighten on the wheel until my fingers hurt. I key the mic and my voice comes out dry. Repeat tower number. Dispatch repeats it, slightly irritated. Tower 36. You are nearest. Please confirm response. A part of me wants to refuse. To say send someone else. To say I am not cleared. To say I am sick. But duty is a hook, and the forest understands hooks. I say I am en route. The words taste like swallowing a nail. I turn onto a spur I do not remember turning onto. The sign at the junction looks familiar, but the paint seems newer than it should. My headlights catch letters that my brain refuses to hold. When I look again, the sign is blank wood, as if the letters never existed. The road narrows. The trees lean in. Fog thickens. The smell returns. Wet bark and iron. My ankle aches as if remembering. I try the radio again, not because I trust it, but because I need something to anchor me. Dispatch, I am on the spur. Confirm sheriff is available if needed. Static answers. Not dispatch. A wet crackle that sounds like breathing through water. Then, threaded through it, my own voice. Not an echo. Not a recording. A perfect imitation that matches my cadence, my tone, my breathing, as if it is speaking out of my lungs while I keep my mouth shut. Come up. My hands go numb. I stare at the radio and feel a wave of nausea. The badge in my pocket warms abruptly, like it just woke up. The truck headlights flicker once. Not failure. A blink. Like something closing and opening its eyes. I keep driving because stopping feels worse. Stopping feels like agreeing. The road bends and my headlights catch footprints in mud. Bare feet. Too long. Toes splayed. Fresh. I do not stop to inspect. I do not step out. I drive past them with my jaw clenched. The footprints are a sentence I already know how to read. Far ahead through fog, between trunks, a faint red pulse appears. Not bright. Not a beacon on a visible structure. Just a red heartbeat floating in the trees where nothing should hang. My stomach twists. The pulse quickens slightly, as if excited that I saw it. Come up. My own voice repeats the phrase through the radio, soft and intimate. I tell myself to turn around. I tell myself to put the truck in reverse and drive until pavement returns and city lights make the dark less intelligent. My body does not obey. My body wants relief. My body wants the stairs. That is the tower's true weapon. It makes you believe climbing is rest. I grip the steering wheel and force my breathing slow. In through nose. Out through mouth. Count. Control. Anchor. I glance at the side window and catch my reflection. For a heartbeat my face is smooth. No eyes. No mouth. No nose. Just pale surface stretched over skull shape. The sight hits my brain with a panic so clean it feels like a blade. I blink hard. My reflection returns to normal. My eyes are my eyes. My mouth is my mouth. Sweat shines on my upper lip. But the fear does not leave, because I saw what the night thinks I am becoming. The red pulse ahead grows stronger. And then, for a split second, the fog parts and I see the outline of something tall between trees. Not a full tower. Not yet. A suggestion. A frame. A shape that looks like scaffolding built from darkness. The beacon pulse rides above it like a red eye. The radio in the passenger seat crackles again, and my own voice speaks with the calm tone I use on routine calls. Jonah Pike. West District. Nearest unit. I am going in. It is repeating my first answer from the first night, using my exact cadence, my exact professionalism, like the forest recorded it and stored it. The implication hits me like cold water. It does not need me anymore. It can call itself. It can answer itself. It can reenact the entire ritual with my voice as bait for the next person who listens. I slam my fist into the radio. Static bursts. The red pulse ahead flares brighter, annoyed. The truck engine sputters once. The headlights dim, then return. Something is tapping inside the engine block, the same rhythm from the first night. Up, up, up. Learning. Shutting me down. I do the only thing that has ever loosened its grip. I grab the emergency flare from my pack. My hands shake, but now I know the motion. I know the feel of the cap. I know the strike angle. I strike. The flare erupts with a violent hiss. Heat blooms. Red light floods the cab, competing with the red pulse ahead. The tapping in the engine pauses. The radio static shifts, as if startled. Outside, in the fog ahead, the red beacon pulse stutters. The forest seems to flinch. My chest tightens with a desperate hope. Heat still matters. I open the truck door and step out onto the road with the flare held high. Fog rolls around my boots. Pines loom close. My breath appears white in the flare light. The red pulse ahead flickers again, uncertain now. The outline of that tall frame wavers like a mirage. I take one limping step forward. Then another. The flare hisses and spits and the heat burns my glove. A shadow moves at the edge of the road. Another. I do not turn my head. I keep the flare between me and the dark. I speak out loud, not to them, not to the tower, but to my own body. Oh. Not tonight. The phrase come up tries to press into my ribs again, but the flare heat makes it harder for the night to grip. The red pulse dims. For a moment, the forest makes a normal sound. Wind through needles. A distant owl. My heart beats in my own rhythm again. I backstep toward the truck without turning around, flare held high. The shadows in the fog do not advance. They hover, cautious, like animals unsure of fire. I get into the truck, slam the door, and keep the flare near the dashboard. The engine coughs, then catches. Headlights steady. The road behind me is a straight line back to pavement. I put the truck in reverse and slowly roll back, eyes locked on the fog ahead, watching the red pulse shrink as if it is being swallowed by trees. The radio crackles once more. Static. Then silence. No words. No invitation. I reverse until I can turn, then I turn and drive away without looking back. I drive until pavement returns. Until cell signal appears. Until the first streetlight flickers over the road like a weak guardian. Only then do I pull over, hands shaking, and kill the engine. The flare burns down in the cab, smoke curling toward the ceiling. In the quiet that follows, I realize something I do not want to accept. The tower was never only Tower 19. It is a pattern. A hunger that builds a mouth wherever it can. A thing that learns your voice and wears it like a uniform. And it will keep calling as long as someone answers. I sit there until the flare dies. Until the smoke clears. Until my breathing slows. Then I start the truck again and head back to town. I will file my report. I will choose every safe word. I will avoid anything that sounds impossible. But I will keep the badge. Because warmth is proof. And if the forest ever calls again, I will need proof that the night is not just a story my fear invented. I will need to remember that it can be fought. That heat matters. That water can slow it. That refusing is possible, even when your body wants to obey. Because one day, someone else will be out there on a midnight road, hearing a beacon ping from a tower number that should not exist. And if my voice comes through their radio telling them to come up, I want there to be at least one person in the world who knows that voice is not theirs to trust. The West District will wait. It always does. And the dark will always try to convince you that duty is the same thing as surrender. If you made it to the end, you understand why I waited to tell this. Because the scariest part is not what I saw. It is what it learned. That tower didn't just lure people. It stole voices, and it used duty like bait. I tried to burn it. I watched it fall. I thought it was over. But out there, the dark doesn't need one tower. It only needs a place to build a mouth. And one night, it called again from a tower number that should not exist. Not with a monster voice. Not with a stranger's whisper. With mine. So if you take anything from this story, take this warning. If you are alone on a midnight road and your radio speaks a phrase that feels too familiar, do not answer it. Turn around. Find light. Find water. Find heat. Because once it gets your voice, it does not stop calling. And if you want to hear more true Midnight Ranger stories from the places maps like to forget, subscribe and stay close. Just remember this. The forest is patient, and it always waits for someone to say yes.